A sharp cry of pain rang out. I kicked out, and Liam went flying backward. He crashed into 2 chairs, sending them toppling, then curled up on the floor whimpering. I planted my foot back on the ground, grabbed a wine bottle from the table, and strode over to where he lay, holding the bottle mouth down. I poured every last drop of red wine over his face. "Ethan, are you insane?" Olivia shrieked and came rushing toward me. At the sight of her, I lifted my right hand. Smack! A sharp, resounding slap cracked across her face. Olivia clapped a hand to her cheek, staring at me in disbelief. "Ethan, you hit me," I scoffed, staring at her with open contempt. "Hit you? Making out with your little boy toy right in front of me, all over each other like I'm not even here. Hitting you is me going easy on you." Olivia's face flushed bright red, tears welled in her eyes, and her voice rose to a shrill pitch. "I didn't, and I already explained this to Yoha's, a family friend I haven't seen in years, like a little brother to me. I was just looking out for him, passing him food and wiping a spot off his mouth. You hit someone over that. You're out of line, brother." I let out a bitter laugh at her defiant, unapologetic face, then kicked her hard in the shoulder. Thud. She stumbled backward and slammed into the floor, the back of her skull cracking against a table leg with a dull, heavy thud. Before she could push herself up, I bent down, wrapped a hand around her throat, and hauled her to her feet. I slammed her back against the wall and stared her dead in the eye, speaking slowly and deliberately. "Some brother you've got there. Tell me what kind of woman calls another man baby right in front of her husband. Did you think I was some doormat you could walk all over however you wanted?" Her mouth hung open, tears streamed down her face. I didn't. You dare stand there and lie to my face." Just then, the scrape of chair legs sounded behind me. I turned to see the other friends I'd invited to dinner slowly getting to their feet. Ethan, man. I just remembered I've got something back at home I need to handle." "Yeah, same here. Work stuff came up. I've gotta run. You guys work this out. We'll head out first." I'd only invited a few friends out for dinner. I never expected Olivia to bring that deadbeat kid along. And I certainly never thought things would spiral this far. I didn't try to stop them. I just apologized for the scene and said we'd catch up another time, as everyone filed out of the private dining room. Liam, who'd been crumpled on the floor, tried to slip out with them. I caught him in the act. He met my gaze and looked immediately guilty. "Ethan, sir, if there's nothing else, I should probably." Trying to run already. I let go of Olivia's throat and walked over to Liam. I kicked him hard in the chest. Thud. He went flying again, slamming back into the floor, his face turning a deep purplish red. I stood over him, looking down. "What's the rush? You were having such a good time earlier. Why not stay a little longer?" He stared up at me, his lips trembling. "Sir, Olivia and I really don't have anything going on, just like a sister to." "Sister." I ignored his lie and planted my boot on his face, grinding my heel hard into his cheek. The other side of his face pressed flat against the cold tile. He thrashed and tried to push my leg away, but his strength was nothing compared to mine. I crouched down, still pressing my boot into his face. "Pretty precious face you've got there. Huh, so precious my wife has to wipe it for you." I ground my heel harder. He made muffled, gurgling sounds, unable to get a single full word out. Olivia huddled against the wall, trembling as she watched. She held her throat, her lips shaking, her eyes wide with terror. In all our years together, I'd always shown her my gentle side. She'd only ever seen the man who doted on her. Today, she'd crossed every last line and now she was seeing the other side of me. Maybe I'd been too soft on her all these years. Maybe that's how we'd ended up here. I stared at the two of them cowering on the floor, then spat at the ground beside them. Trash. I pulled open the door and walked out. Once I left the restaurant, I called my assistant James. "Mr. Carter." His voice came through the line. "Look into 2 people for me." "Go ahead." I paused for a beat. "Olivia Carter and Liam Scott. I want everything you can dig up on their history, and put a couple of good men on them 24/7. I want why move they make reported back to me." There was a brief silence on the other end. "Understood. I'll handle it right away." After that night at the restaurant, Olivia didn't come home for 3 days. On the 3rd night, I sat scrolling through the files James had sent over on Olivia and Liam. According to the report, Liam had been Olivia's childhood neighbor. He'd moved away for work years ago and hadn't come back in a long time. With no contact between them for years, he'd suddenly reappeared in Olivia's life a little over 2 weeks prior. They'd grown close, but hadn't yet crossed the final line, at least not back then. I didn't react much to Liam's background, but when I saw what the two of them had been up to these past 3 days, my jaw tightened. The photos and videos James had sent captured everything. Them shopping together, holding hands, even kissing. At first, Olivia had clearly resisted Liam's advances. But before long they were acting no different from a couple madly in love. I opened my chat with Olivia and sent a single message. Get your ass back here in 3 hours, or we're getting a divorce. Almost immediately, I got a wall of text back, full of excuses and explanations. I glanced at it once, then tossed my phone aside and ignored it. A little over 2 hours later, I heard keys in the front door. Olivia walked in. When she saw my dark expression, she forced a smile and stepped toward me. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I could tell how upset you were that night. So I thought I'd give you some space to cool off. I stayed with a friend these past few days. Please don't be mad, he didn't mean to upset you. I didn't bother with her tired little lies. I slapped her hard across the face. Smack. She stumbled sideways, staring at me with hurt, wounded eyes. Before she could speak, I grabbed a folder off the coffee table and dumped the printed photos out in front of her. I looked at her with a cold, mocking smile. This is staying with a friend. You two must be really close friends. Olivia picked up a photo. The second she saw what was on it, all the color drained from her face. She looked up at me, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. I sat back down on the couch and looked at her calmly. Looks like you two had a fun 3 days. Olivia. She snapped her head up, desperate. Ethan. No, it's not what you think. Just let me explain. Liam's the kid from next door back home. He's always been really sensitive. After you beat him up that night, I was scared he'd do something stupid, so I was just checking on him. I stood up, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and wrenched her forward until she was face to face with me. I smirked coldly. Your version of checking on him is going shopping together and making out in public where everyone can see. Olivia yelped in pain and scrambled to explain. That's not it. He kissed me. He forced himself on me. I couldn't fight him off, too strong. I looked at her wounded, victimized little act, then shoved her away. I picked up one of the photos and nodded. You're right. This one does look like you're pushing him away. Olivia's face lit up with relief. If and so you believe me, you'll forgive me. I smiled faintly. If you were forced, of course I'll forgive you. But if he assaulted you like that, you shouldn't wait around. Go to the police. File a report for sexual assault. For half a second, she looked ecstatic. Then the second half of my sentence landed, and her face went rigid. No, I can't do that. I'd expected as much. I looked at her, amused. What's wrong? You feel bad for him. A flash of guilt crossed her face, but she quickly composed herself and forced another smile. Ethan, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about you. Don't forget you hit him first. If I go to the police, he'll tell them what you did. You could get in trouble. You could go to jail. She grabbed my hand, her face full of fake concern. I'm doing this for you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. I ripped my hand away, disgusted. For me, Olivia. Let me refresh your memory. All I did was kick him a couple times, pour some wine on his head, and step on his face a little. It looked rough, but he didn't have a single real injury. And that private room. No security cameras. As for my friends, you think any of them would throw me under the bus for some stranger? I tilted her chin up with one hand, forcing her to look at me. Or is it that you want to testify on his behalf? Her whole body trembled. She rushed to speak. No. I would never. I held her chin tight, speaking slowly and coldly. I don't have time for your lies. Here are your 2 options. 1. Go to the police and put him away. 2. Get a divorce. You can sign the papers or I can file a lawsuit. Your call. I let go of her and waited. Tears streamed down her face. No, I don't want a divorce. I'll do whatever you say. The hallway of the police station was cold. Olivia sat on a bench, her hands folded tight in her lap, her nails digging into her palms. I leaned against the wall by the window, watching her silently. Soon, an officer brought Liam over. His face lit up the second he saw Olivia, frantic and desperate. Olivia, tell them, I didn't force you. You wanted it. You kissed me back. His voice was raw, cracking with tears. He tried to lunge toward her, but the officer hauled him back. Stay still. Olivia looked up at him, her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Liam kept screaming, Olivia, say something. You're the one who found me. You asked me out. You kissed me first. Tell them, Olivia. His voice boomed down the hallway. Olivia stared at him for a long moment, then glanced over at me. Finally, she turned her head away. I didn't care much about what happened inside. I just walked straight out of the police station. Once outside, I pulled out my phone and forwarded all the photos of Olivia and Liam together to her father's number. I added a short message. Dad, Olivia's been cheating on me with Liam, the boy from next door back home. I sent it. Then turned off my phone and put it back in my pocket. Back in their hometown. Mr. Bennett stared at the photos on his phone and saw red. God damn it. He slammed his phone down on the coffee table, threw open the front door, and stormed outside. Ben. Mrs. Bennett called after him. Where are you going? He didn't answer. He marched straight to the house next door and kicked the front door in. Bang. Mr. Scott had been sitting on the couch watching TV. The noise made him jump to his feet. Ben. What the hell? Mr. Bennett stormed inside and grabbed him by the collar. What the hell kind of son did you raise? Mr. Scott stared, stunned. What are you talking about? Mr. Bennett shoved his phone in his face. Look at what your boy did. Mr. Scott stared at the screen, his eyes going wide. The photo showed Liam with his arms around a woman, kissing her full on the mouth. He knew that woman. It was Olivia. That can't be right. My boy's working out of town. There's no way. No way. Mr. Bennett roared. The photos are right here and you're still lying. Your son seduced my daughter. Don't you dare stand there and deny it. Mr. Scott's temper flared. Watch your mouth. Ben, what do you mean, seduced? My son didn't hold a gun to her head. She's a grown woman. If she didn't want it, it wouldn't have happened. You son of a... Mr. Bennett threw a punch. Mr. Scott dodged, then shoved him hard in the chest. You wanna fight? Mr. Bennett stumbled backward, slamming into the coffee table. He regained his balance, lunged forward, and grabbed Mr. Scott by the collar. The two men began wrestling, throwing punches. Thud. Mr. Bennett shoved Mr. Scott as hard as he could. Mr. Scott went flying backward. The back of his head slammed against the stone step just outside the front door. His eyes rolled back. He went still. Blood poured from the back of his skull, seeping down the stone steps and pooling dark red on the ground. Mr. Bennett stood there panting, staring. The reality of what he'd just done hit him, and he froze. Panicking. The noise had drawn the neighbors. People came running to see what was going on, and the second they saw Mr. Scott lying in a pool of blood, they started screaming for an ambulance. Before long, the wail of sirens filled the air. Olivia and I had just gotten home when she got a call from Mrs. Hale, their old neighbor back home. Olivia, honey, something terrible's happened. You need to sit down. Olivia went pale, panic rising in her voice. Mrs. Hale, what's wrong? What happened? Mrs. Hale told her everything. When Mr. Bennett found out about Olivia and Liam, he'd stormed next door and gotten into a fight with Mr. Scott. He'd pushed him, and Mr. Scott had fallen and hit his head on the stone steps. He hadn't made it. He was dead. Mr. Bennett had been taken into police custody, charged with involuntary manslaughter. And Mrs. Bennett, she'd collapsed from the shock of it all. She was in the hospital, still unconscious. Olivia went completely still when she heard the news. It took her several long seconds to process it. Then she whirled around, pointing a shaking finger at me. Ethan, was it you? Did you send my dad those photos? I set down my teacup and leaned back against the couch, watching her calmly. So what if I did? I only told him the truth. You cheated on me. You messed around with that boy. Every word of it was true. I paused, then gave her a cold, taunting smile. I will say, though, I had no idea your dad had that much of a temper. Who knew one little push would kill a man? Olivia's face flushed bright red with rage. She screamed at me. I did what you said. I put Liam away. You knew how my dad is. You did this on purpose. On purpose. I smiled pleasantly. Olivia, you need proof to say things like that. Where's your proof I meant for any of this to happen? You bastard. She snapped. Sobbing, she lunged at me, claws out, aiming for my face. I slapped her hard, sending her sprawling back onto the couch. I pinned her wrists down before she could struggle again. Olivia, I'd calm down if I were you. Don't forget your mother's still in the hospital. What do you think would happen if I sent a few people around to spread the word about what you and that boy did? What if everyone at the hospital started whispering about it? Do you think your mother's fragile heart could take that? All the fight went out of her. She stared up at me, terrified. Monster, you're a monster. That's right. I'm a monster. What are you gonna do about it? I pulled out the divorce papers I'd already prepared and set them down in front of her. Enough talking. Sign. Olivia stared at the papers, stunned. What? I stared her dead in the eye, slow and deliberate. I said, sign. The divorce papers. She gaped at me, then roared with rage and grief. You're actually doing this. My dad's in jail. My mom's in the hospital. And you're divorcing me right now. That's right. I sat back, crossing one leg over the other. For your mother's sake. I'd sign quietly if I were you. You know what happens if you don't. I'm not gonna say it again. Tears poured down Olivia's face. She stared at the papers for a long time, bitter and defeated. Then she picked up the pen and signed her name. A few days later, James knocked on my office door and walked in quickly. Mr. Carter, Liam's out. I set down the file I was reading and looked up at him. How is he? He went straight to the hospital first, to see his father's body. His eyes were all red when he left. Is that so? I leaned back in my chair and smiled faintly. Makes sense. His dad just died. Of course he's upset. Just then, I got a message that Liam was causing a scene out front of the building. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked down. At the main entrance of the office building, Liam stood on the steps below, held back by 4 security guards. His clothes were rumpled, his hair a mess, his eyes sunken and bloodshot. He looked like he'd crawled out of a dumpster. He screamed up at the building at the top of his lungs. Ethan, get out here. A guard stepped forward to stop him, and Liam shoved him away. Don't touch me. More security guards rushed over and wrestled him to the ground, holding him down tight. He thrashed and struggled. Let go of me. I need to see him. He killed my dad. He's gonna pay for this. His voice got louder, shriller. Pedestrians stopped to stare. People in the office building across the street leaned out their windows to watch. I watched the whole thing from above. James stood behind me. Mr. Carter, should we call the police? Not yet. I turned and walked out of the office, heading for the elevator. The receptionist jumped to her feet when she saw me walk through the lobby. Mr. Carter. I waved her back down, then pushed open the glass front doors and stepped outside. Liam's eyes went wide the second he saw me. Ethan. He tried to lunge forward, but the security guards held him pinned to the ground. Let go of me. Let go. He roared like a caged animal, the veins in his neck bulging, his face purple with rage. I walked down the steps and stood calmly in front of him. Liam, what exactly do you think you're doing out here? Doing? His voice shook with rage and hatred. You killed my dad, and you have the nerve to ask what I'm doing. You're not human, Ethan. He spat the words at me. I looked at him, my tone cold and flat. Your father's death has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you. He practically snarled. Every muscle in his body tensed. You sent those photos to Olivia's dad. You set them up to fight. You killed him. He was so agitated he almost broke free of the guard's grip. I stared at him, slow and steady. Liam, let's get one thing straight. The photos I sent were real. You were messing around with Olivia, as her husband. I had every right to tell her father about his daughter cheating, and for the record your dad was pushed by Olivia's father, not me. Liam's mouth snapped shut. He tried to argue, but he had nothing to say. I didn't wait for him to recover. You just got out of detention, right? If you keep causing a scene out here in front of my building, I won't hesitate to put you right back in there. Rage burned in his eyes. You what? I looked him up and down, my expression full of open disgust. Now get out of here before you make an even bigger fool of yourself. You're making a mess on my property. I turned and walked back inside the building. That night, I drove home from the office. My headlights cut through the dark. I got out of the car and a figure lunged at me out of the shadows. Liam came charging at me with a pocket knife, the blade aimed straight for my chest. He moved fast, but clumsy. I dodged the strike without a flicker of expression, then kicked him hard in the knee. He crumpled to the ground with a cry. I stepped down hard on the hand holding the knife. Crack! A sharp, sickening snap cut through the quiet night. Ah! A high, wailing scream tore out of him. He curled up on the ground like a shrimp, clutching his wrist and writhing in agony. My hand, my hand. I lifted my foot and stood over him, watching him twist on the ground with a cold smirk. Liam, you actually had the guts to come after me. He glared up at me, his eyes full of murderous hatred. Ethan, you and that woman killed my dad. I'm gonna kill you. Is that so? I looked down at him from above. I'll give you Thizio got nerve. Too bad you don't have the skill to back it up. I don't like having loose ends. Liam, you keep coming after me. And you can't blame me for what happens next. Fear flashed across his face. What are you gonna do? You'll find out soon enough. If there's anything you need to take care of, do it now. You won't get another chance. And if you still want to come after me, be my guest. I turned and walked into the mansion. Liam walked out of the hospital with his wrist in a cast. He stood on the steps, staring up at the gray, overcast sky. His right arm was slung across his chest. His left hand was in his pocket, curled tight around the pocket knife. He hated me with every fiber of his being, but he knew he couldn't touch me. Then he remembered what I'd said. What did he mean? I won't get another chance. Is he gonna know? My dad just died. Even if I die trying, I'm gonna make them pay. Another face popped into his head. Olivia. She was the one who'd called the cops. She was the one who'd told the police he'd forced himself on her. And his dad was dead because of her father. Her dad was in prison now. A father's debt the daughter pays. The tea night. At 10 o'clock, Olivia came home from the hospital. She'd been sitting with her mother. She still hadn't woken up. The doctors said it didn't look good, that she should prepare for the worst. She'd sat by the bed for hours, holding her mother's hand, talking to her. There'd been no response, just the steady beep of the vital signs monitor. She walked up to her apartment door and pulled out her keys. The hallway lights were motion activated. She stamped her foot, and the bulb flickered on. Dim yellow light fell over the door. She bent her head to fit the key in the lock. A voice sounded right behind her. Before she could turn around, a hand clamped over her mouth. Don't scream. The voice was rough and hoarse, but she recognized it instantly. It was Liam. He shoved her inside the apartment and kicked the door shut. The hallway light went out. The apartment was pitch black. Don't turn on the lights. Olivia froze, her whole body shaking. Liam, what do you want? What do I want? He laughed, a cold, eerie sound in the dark. You killed my dad, and you ask what I want. It wasn't me. It was Ethan. He. Shut up. He roared the word. Olivia heard the faint scrape of metal. A cold glint flashed in the dark. A knife. She turned and ran. In the darkness, she slammed her knee into the corner of the coffee table. White-hot pain shot up her leg, and tears burst from her eyes. But she didn't stop. She fumbled her way toward the front door. Liam followed the sound of her movement. He caught up and grabbed a fistful of her hair. Ah! She screamed in pain and thrashed wildly. Her scalp burned. He dragged her backward. She reached out blindly, her nails raking across his face. He grunted and loosened his grip for a split second. She broke free, threw the front door open, and screamed into the hallway. Help! Please, help me! Liam ran after her, the knife glinting under the hallway light. Shut up! He lunged and stabbed. Olivia twisted to the side, but the blade sliced deep into her arm. Blood welled up instantly. She screamed and ran for the stairs. Help! He's gonna kill me! Help! Her screams echoed up and down the stairwell. Lights started turning on in apartments up and down the building. People were waking up. Liam panicked. He hadn't meant for this to get so loud. He ran after her, grabbed her by the collar, and wrenched her back around. He raised the knife and drove it straight for her face. Die! Olivia threw her hands up to shield herself. The blade sliced through her fingers. Her index and middle fingers were severed clean off at the knuckle. Blood sprayed everywhere, splattering the walls and both their faces. Ah! Olivia screamed and doubled over. The stumps of her fingers showed white bone. Blood poured out in thick, dark pulses. Liam hesitated for only a second. Then he raised the knife again, aiming straight for her eye. Stop! Several men came charging up the stairs. They threw themselves at Liam, trying to tackle him to the ground. But the blade still grazed Olivia's eye. She shrieked and clutched her face. One of the men missed her. Ray grabbed a metal pipe from the stairwell and slammed it hard into Liam's arm. Ah! Liam cried out and dropped the knife. The men pinned him to the ground, holding him down tight. He struggled, but they had him face down on the tile, unable to move. Olivia lay on the floor, clutching her face, her whole body twitching. Blood seeped through her fingers, soaking her face and pooling on the ground beneath her. She made small, gurgling sounds, half scream, half sob. Mr. Ray knelt down and pressed hard on the wound on her arm, trying to stop the bleeding. There was so much blood, it kept pouring out between his fingers. Ambulance. Did someone call an ambulance? Yeah, they're on their way. Jake knelt down beside Liam, his phone still pressed to his ear. Cops are on the way too. Hold the scene until they get here. Liam lay face down on the cold tile. He turned his head and looked over at Olivia on the floor, at all the blood, at her 2 severed fingers, at her ruined, bleeding eye. He smiled, a faint, eerie little smile. Then he lifted his head and shouted into the distance, "Ethan, if I'm gonna die, I'm dying on my own terms." He made a sharp, crunching motion with his jaw. Then he went completely still. By the time Olivia was wheeled into the hospital, she'd lost too much blood and passed out. Doctors pushed her into the operating room. The hallway lights flickered past her pale, bloodless face one by one. Her severed fingers had been lost somewhere in the hallway. They were never found. Her left eye couldn't be saved. She was permanently blind in it. The next morning, James knocked and walked into my office. "Mr. Carter, Liam's dead." I set down my coffee mug and looked up. "How?" "He went after Olivia last night, cut off 2 of her fingers and blinded her in one eye. She survived, though. Neighbors heard the commotion and tackled him. Once they had him pinned down, he bit down on a poison capsule he'd hidden in his mouth. Killed himself instantly. Suicide." "Huh." I nodded slowly. I'd been planning to deal with him permanently. One way or another, someone that unhinged would always come back for revenge. Even if you locked him up, death was the only way to be sure. But it looked like I wouldn't have to bother after all. "Anything else?" James paused for a beat, then went on. "Olivia's mother, she woke up yesterday afternoon." "Woke up?" James nodded. "But she's paralyzed from the neck down. She'll need full-time care for the rest of her life. From the looks of it, those 2 women have a very hard life ahead of them." I nodded and waved a hand. James bowed his head and left the office. "Hey there. Could you rate this story in the comments? Use a scale of 1 to 10. Please, I am begging you. It really means a lot to me. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget to hit follow.